Tell Me About It is brought to you by Extreme Health Club.
Trevent Hayes, KY Sports TV, James Brown, 104 The Score, Glasgow Electric Plant Board, Channel 6, the local channel.
What's the name of our show?
Tell me about it.
That's it.
I always mention it at some point during the show, James.
I love the fact that every time I say, hey, you want to bring us in before we start? And you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, well, let's see what kind of random word salad we put together to start the show this week.
You put together word salads a lot.
Oh, I know I do.
Okay.
I'm
Well, it's just not a one-way street.
Huh?
It's not one way.
Oh, no. Look,
Okay.
I get dates and days and names wrong on here. So, I mean, I goof it up.
I know you do. I just don't call you out on it.
You should, though.
I don't. I'm not that guy.
Oh, well, I don't mind because, I mean, I find it amusing, to be honest with you. I believe in the philosophy of take what you do seriously, but not yourself.
Okay.
So, anyway, what are we going to talk about to start with? We're going to talk about football coaches?
We can.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vacancies.
There are a lot of vacancies, and another one came open yesterday morning, well, officially, when Tommy Muse was let go as the Barren County football coach.
At first, I thought the guy from Shelby County that got let go was going to be like the biggest story.
Yeah.
But after being on Facebook and Twitter last night,
yeah. Look,
here's my question. Shelby County, I can understand that. I can.
Well,
they were winning.
Yeah, but there were some situations with him, right, that were not related to football.
But I don't think they really warranted him being fired.
Well, I don't know, and the reason I say I don't know is because I've just seen like the initial reporting on this.
Okay.
So I don't know what the specifics are.
Okay.
And you know, he was reassigned as a teacher. He was removed as football coach.
Right.
So he's still with the
And
Shelby
that's why I
County School
didn't
District.
understand it. And you know, the parents are calling for boycotts and everything.
I imagine, depending on what the actual allegations behind closed doors that we don't know yet are, the school district is following a legal precedent, which is move the person from the circumstance, conduct your investigation, and determine what their employment status will be with the district.
Gotcha.
What's happened there is not an unusual way of a legal process of handling something of that nature. Now,
And as a coach, I'm going to be careful.
yeah.
But if they fire me, they fire me. You know.
Well,
it is what it is.
As we're talking about the Shelby County dude, what I do want to point out is that there's no rumors out there about Tommy doing anything.
Right.
This is apparently strictly football coaching related. That because he's still at the Barren County schools as well, and he may stay there. Because,
And you know, here's the thing that gets me is, and we've talked about this a bunch. Barren County dominates in Little League and middle school. Mm-hmm. But then they get to the high school level and they're never successful. Now, is that because of the coach?
So here's my thing. Barren County schools were finished consolidated in 1977.
Okay.
I think the first coaching staff was kind of a collective of the different folks who had been coaching 8-man football at the 4 high schools in the county. Bobby Steenbergen led that group. I think Bud Terry was part of it. There are a couple of others whose names I can't remember off the top of my head. And they did okay right out the gate at first consolidation. I don't remember if Jerry Eubank was the coach who immediately took over after those guys stepped aside, because they all coached other sports or involved in other things.
Right.
And so Jerry Eubank is the most successful coach at Barren County. Okay. I believe he was there for 11 years.
Was he there in the 80s?
All through the 80s, and I think he left in 90 or 91.
Okay, it was one of those years in the 80s. I know Barren County went like 8-2, or
they
were in they were playing Bowling Green, and
yeah, that's who was in their district and that kind of thing. And there were only 3 classifications at that time. And that's another thing that people may not recall about that whole window of time. Not everybody went to the playoffs. Just
Right.
the top 2 teams in the district made it. And so they were, I think he had 100 wins, I think, at Barren County in those years. Right, maybe it was 100, right there. So that means he had 8 wins a season pretty much every year he was there, as I recall. This is me just off the top of my head.
Okay.
Since then, they have, the next longest tenured coach was Billy Lindsay. I think he was there, maybe he was there for 8 or 9 years as well.
Billy's now at Bowling Green.
Yeah, he's running backs coach at Bowling Green.
Right.
And so they had a couple of pretty good seasons there. They had one that I believe it was when Daniel Bird was playing and he got hurt, and that was the year that a lot of people thought they had a real chance to make a run at getting deep into the playoffs. And I think they had actually a couple of runs, in winning first round games and that kind of stuff. But basically, since Billy Lindsay left, they had Bob Blair was the interim for the year right after Billy Lindsay left. They won one game, the last game of the season against Warren East. Then they had Jason Scott. I think he was there for a year. Then they had, I believe, William Howard was next. He may have been there for 3. Jeff Ritchie was there for 2 or 3. He may have been there a little longer than that. You had Jason Esters, who was there probably about 5 seasons, I think it was. You had Griffith there. Didn't
the Smith guy coach one year? That played at Barren?
When I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, the only 2 Barren County graduates that have been hired that we could recall were Jason Esters and then Tommy Muse. Everybody else is.
I thought the Smith guy coached at
You
Barren.
talking about Maxie? He was an assistant.
He's
never
assistant.
had the head coach. The guy from Hinesville, Maxie Smith.
Yes, Max. Yes.
Yeah.
I thought Mac. They called him Mac.
Yeah. Yeah, he was never the head coach.
Gotcha.
He may have been an interim head for the summer during one of those times when somebody got let go or left.
Okay.
But yeah, he was there for a while. I think he was the defensive guy most of all that time that he was there. So anyway, they've just kind of like, I'm not sure, in my opinion, if they've ever just said, all right, since Billy Lindsay left,
We're going to give somebody a chance.
we're going to let him stay here for as long as possible, because going back to that question you said about, Barren County not necessarily being successful, there's a program out in this state that we can look at that has a very similar demographic situation, and that would be Boyle County.
Okay.
Right? They were the county school, also ran in football. Danville was a state powerhouse. And somewhere early 90s, 93, 94, Chuck Smith got the job as the head coach. He emphasized certain things in that program and, pretty quickly turned it around. But he brought in a college mentality for running a program, and it blew up, and it's sustained through that. And that's what I don't know what the answer is at Barren in terms of whether or not they'll be successful or can be successful or why they aren't, that kind of thing. I do think, if you're running a 5A program as a head coach, it's a different animal than running one as a 1A, because you got a lot more people to deal with, a lot more things to manage. You're really kind of a manager more than a coach, and that means your assistants have to be good coaches. So
do you think do you think that's been an issue?
the one answer I have is I don't feel like anyone since Billy Lindsay left has been given the time for us to know the answer, or maybe even the leeway. I wonder about, the coaches they are allowed to bring in versus the ones that they must retain from the previous staff and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that the answer has to be longevity of something. But I guess if you're the administration, you have to look at it and feel like the program is progressing toward that end goal.
Barren won 5 games this year, right?
They did. They won 4 on the field.
Right. The one was against North, but then they lost a couple of games I really didn't think they should have lost.
That's probably true.
And that's not. And I'm not saying that that has anything to do with the coach, because we lost games I didn't think we should have lost. And I don't think it was my fault, but.
Well, and you just never know. Like, I don't know with the injury situations in some of those games and that kind of stuff. I did believe, as it turned out, McCracken County was not the worst team out of that district over there that was the 4 seed that Barren played in the first round of the playoffs. I thought they competed well in that game. It turned out McCracken was pretty good because they won the next round too. So and this was a year that they were actually supposed to be off Barren because they lost most of their defense except for their defensive backs. So he was rebuilding defensive linebackers and that kind of thing. And possibly next year they could be pretty good because almost all their skill players are returning. All of their defensive guys, I think most of their linemen, they did not lose a lot to graduation. They're not going to lose a lot. So they have one of their more talented teams coming back, and so I guess in a way I'm also a little disappointed because I feel like I'm friends with everybody that I work with, coaches wise and all that stuff.
We're not friends.
Well, that's fine. We do this show together. We're acquaintances. We're victims of
But
circumstance.
as a coach, here's what really gets me is, seeing the stuff on Facebook.
There are a lot of people who
There's
really
a lot
like
of upset
Tommy.
people.
Yeah,
there's
really
a lot
like
of
Tommy.
upset people. But as a coach, myself, just because I'm a good person, I think, and just because I have a good relationship with the kids, that doesn't make me a good coach.
No.
And I'm not saying that's the case because I don't know Coach
Yeah.
Muse. I don't know him.
Yeah.
But my thing is, okay, you bring a guy in that doesn't have a relationship with the kids. Mm-hmm. He's not good with the kids. You're still not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Because the kids are not going to want to play for you. So, you're going to bring a complete stranger per se in, I'm assuming.
It feels like they better hit a home run higher on this.
They better hit a home run, or I think Barren County football is going to be in trouble.
Here's another thing. There are two things that I think Tommy did as the leader of that program that I thought were really good. He's been engaged at the youth level, middle school level. He's been an engaged head coach of the program with an eye of building that program by building up the numbers. I think one of the greatest weaknesses of Barren County's football program through the years I've covered it, which is 20, as a 5A school, the numbers have always been low. Now, we can talk about talent and that kind of thing, but when you're playing at that 5A level, you're generally playing against programs that they have guys who are playing offense, defense, and special teams.
Platoons.
Yes.
And I talked to, there was a 7-on-7 tryout this past weekend, and we were talking. St. X this past year brought 100 freshmen to play Bowling Green.
Yeah.
100 freshmen.
Yeah.
And how many boys are enrolled in Barren County?
Let's see, there's about 1,400 students, so 700 if you just do 50-50 math on it.
700. So I'd say out of 700, geez, I'd love to have 700 boys to choose from.
What do you have, 100 total?
Maybe
in the school?
100.
Yeah.
But the thing that they have the nicest facility around.
Mm-hmm.
They have fan support.
Yeah, that's one thing about Barren County. Even when the teams were not good, the
They're
fan
still coming
support
to
has been
watch.
great.
So I think with the right guy, you're still going to have to compete because Barren County's probably going to come back down to 5A.
Well, yeah, because the KHSA is going to make everybody.
They're going to make them. So they're going to be in
the.
the district. Hopefully for Barren, South Warren has to move up to 6A.
They will be a 6A.
So, but you're still going to be in with Bowling Green.
Yeah. I think the district would be Bowling Green, Greenwood, and maybe Grayson County, which is one that it was before. And if there's a fifth in there, I don't know who that would be. But
But
it's
I
probably
really
those
think
four.
Barren, I mean, of course,
That's in 2025.
Bowling Green's going to be Bowling Green.
Yeah.
But, this middle school team, I think they've only lost like one game in a few years.
Yeah, well, the seventh grade only lost one game this year, I think. Now, the eighth grade lost 3 or 4. But the group that was before them, the ones that were sophomores this year and freshmen, I mean, they both, lost 1 or 2 games their entire middle school careers. The thing about this, though, is it's not, I mean, look, it's great to win in middle school, but again, managing that middle school program, even if you're the head coach of the 8th and 7th grade, that's half the numbers of the high school plus the infrastructure built around it.
Right.
So you're managing a football team at middle school, and that's very different than managing a program at the 5A. What you have to be able to do then is the kids who aren't getting on the field when they are 14 and 15 before they've developed fully into who they're going to be, you have to figure out as the manager of that program to convince them to stay around so that you still have them when they're seniors.
So that you can develop them.
Yeah.
And that's not just at Barren. I mean,
no, that's every school.
That's with us.
Yeah.
You know, I had probably 11 kids that really never got to do much. But I had to keep them engaged enough and keep them encouraged enough to, hey, work out so that you can help us next year.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully they all come back. But you just, you know, when you're dealing with teenage kids, you never know.
Right.
You never know.
And so that's the other problem that Barren has had through the years of its program, especially in the 20 that I've covered it, is having these senior classes with 10 kids in it instead of 20. And there's 30 coming in at freshmen. So, I mean, a third of them or 2/3 of them are gone by the time they're seniors. And I think that's part of the turnover of coaches over the time has affected that too, where a kid starts working out for a coach and they feel like they see a plan for themselves in that program. Coaches change. The next coach comes in, he just looks, he doesn't know what work they put in. He just sees them right now as they are developed. And maybe that coach plans on being there, and maybe that coach plans on going somewhere else in a couple of years because Barren's a stepping stone for them. And
Well,
those kids then are like, why am I doing this?
Let me speak on Coach Muse's behalf.
Okay.
How many of these parents do you think is the reasoning for these kids to stop playing? Because these parents think that their kids are better than what they really are. At the time, at the particular time that they encourage them to just, hey, let's just play basketball, or hey, let's just play football.
Yeah. I don't know, because all of us as parents are delusional. So,
you know, I used to be, but like I've said it time and time again. Hey, told Trevor when he was a sophomore, you're not going to college to play basketball. I'm not sending you to play on a $2,000 AAU team. We're not going to basketball camps. If you want to focus on football, in which I see that you can play college football, then that's what we'll do. But I'm telling you, there's so many parents out there that thinks their kids are the next Joe Burrow, the next Emmitt Smith, the next Brian Urlacher, and they want these kids to achieve, just like every parent wants their kids to achieve, but they're not willing to do the things outside of that 23-week football season to get their kids to that level to be good.
yeah.
There's so many things that come into the equation. Kids just don't. There's not any athlete around here, none. There's not any athlete around here that's good enough to go to Division I without extra training and extra help. They're not.
Well, and here's the thing about that also. There's a proliferation of people who are making money off of parents who believe that their children are going to be the next so-and-so.
And that's criminal.
It is, because the first rule that you ever learn about a sport is play it. Just the playing of it, especially if you're not in a controlled environment very often, but also in an uncontrolled environment where you have to go participate, not knowing the people you're dealing with, so that you get that exposure of having to work with people you don't know.
It's football. You know, we're talking football, so I've encouraged kids, go try out, skill kids.
Yeah.
Go try out for these 7-on-7 teams. Mm-hmm. You know, when you go to these 7-on-7 events, you know, I've been to some of the bigger ones in the country, to where there was, you know, there'd be 50 teams, and there was 150 Division I players at these events. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different ball game when you leave Barren County, Glasgow, Caverna, Hart County. The competition level is just way up here.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of kids that thinks they're way up here, But when you compete against those kids that are nationally ranked, it's a whole different ballgame.
When my kids were young, I used to tell them that if they were, well, my son especially, if you were serious about basketball, there's this neighborhood in Hattiesburg. This is when we were still living there, and if you go play basketball there, you learn life lessons, and then you decide whether or not you want to go back. I told him I said I'm going to drop you off there, and then I'll come back and get you in a couple of hours if you're serious.
They didn't want to go?
Well, I mean, they were young. I meant when they got older. No, we don't drop them off there when they were young, man.
And that's my thing is, we've got some kids that can play Division I, but you have to work on your craft.
Yeah.
If you're not putting, extra time in throwing as a quarterback, catching the ball as a receiver, working on your hands and feet as a lineman, it's just going to be hard to play at the next level.
I got one last thing. I know we got to cut
Aaron
this segment.
he keeps flipping the light on us.
So whenever I was in high school, I lived in a neighborhood. I think his name was Richard Bird. He played offensive tackle for the Houston Oilers at that time, and he was in the off season. He was out in this big lot area that was adjacent to our apartment complexes, setting himself up things and running his drills during the off season. And this is back, in the 80s, before everybody had their
combines and
all these things they were doing. He was out there every day doing that. And he was allegedly already a shoe-in, as a draft pick. So it's like a thing I never forgot, because the first time he was doing it, he was making all these noises as he's running around. And I was like, who is that lunatic dude out there? And then I figured out who he was, and he played for the Houston Oilers and all this jazz. And I just never forgot this dude. I mean, nobody around. He's just out there working.
That's when you get better, when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk a little basketball.
Extreme Fitness has doubled in size, now with over 8,000 square feet of co-ed weights and an upgraded 90-degree saline therapy pool. The Extreme Fitness campus also holds the exclusive Extreme Fitness for Women complex and Extreme Blend smoothie bar. You have to experience the variety of classes to realize the impact they have on their clients. Personal training is with the best in the business and is available and tailored to fit individuals. So start your journey today at Extreme Fitness and Health Club.
Welcome back to Tell Me About It. This is James Brown here on 104. No, I am with 104thescore.com. Hey, see, people get to laugh at this now.
Yeah, they will.
Like Trevent did. Trevent's with kysports.tv, and we are on Glasgow EPB Channel 6 local
What's the name
channel.
of the show?
I said start with Tell Me
Well,
About
I
It.
want to know again.
Tell me about it.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
You
Tell me about some basketball.
Basketball. Hart County is off to a slow start.
Boys and girls?
Boys. Girls are playing pretty good. I think they're 500.
Yeah, they're 2-2 now.
2-2.
Yeah.
Glasgow. Couldn't tell you. You tell me about it.
All right. Glasgow won their first two games. They're 2-1. They beat Greenwood in overtime, beat Logan County pretty handily, lost to Warren East 74-64. And I tell you what, in the 15th district, Warren East is a problem because
They got Baby Shaq.
yeah, Barber is back, and he's got good feet, good hands. Whenever I was watching him play against Glasgow, I thought about Billy Joe Murphy when he was in high school. Football player, lineman, but better feet and hands than you expect. And so effective high school basketball players. And Glasgow struggled to match up with him in the first half. They did a better job in the second half. They outscored East in the second half. And so that was not a district game. That was one of that 2A sectional games. So they have two district games coming up. And I think it'll be pretty interesting. And I think between Barren, Glasgow, and Warren East in the boys in the 15th district, it'll be pretty interesting this year. Because they're all very different than they were last year.
What about Glasgow girls?
They've lost their first couple of games. They've just not shot the ball very well yet. Like Kylie Green, Kayla Kirkpatrick have not shot the ball particularly well from outside. Addie Slagle, the 8th grader, she's played great the first couple of games. I think once they kind of get into a rhythm offensively and shoot the ball I think they'll be okay.
Barren County boys.
They are running guns, shooting threes. They're actually a lot of fun to watch. I think they've shot 33 threes in each game. I bet you if you compiled all of the three-point shooting in last season, they may not have gotten 33 total.
Really?
I mean, they probably did, but
Pretty close.
But they were not a three-point shooting team, not last year or even the couple of years before that.
What are they, 2-2?
They are 1-2.
1-2.
Yeah, they lost to E-Town and Caverna and beat Campbellsville to start with.
Campbellsville.
Yeah.
Campbellsville's they're down.
Yeah, they were like the number 10 ranked team in the 5th region at the start of the season, and then I saw them playing. I'm like, I don't know how that happened.
We're going to get to that after we talk about the Barren County girls.
All right, they're really good.
They are.
Even without Katie Murphy right now, they're playing pretty well. When she gets back, you know, if she has a month to kind of get into game shape and get her feet under, probably just go over the mental aspect of playing on that knee. I think they'll be really tough in the 4th region.
Be hard to beat.
Yeah.
Caverna. Not ranked preseason top 10.
No.
No players ranked in the top 10.
No.
I feel like they were robbed on both ends.
Yeah, Jalen Crane should have been one of the top 10 players.
Hands down.
And they should have been at least number 10.
I thought they should have been in the top 10.
Yeah, and whenever Steve Barker joined John Butler and I on the Brown Sports Bag, we talked about that, and he had a funny comment because, you know, coaches aren't supposed to acknowledge such things, and he said, you know, I don't really pay attention to that stuff. He said, either people just don't know or they choose not to know. I thought that was pretty amusing, but then he did admit it was billboard material. It's up in the locker room.
It is. You know, Jalen Crane's averaging 26 points a game.
Yeah.
Point guard. Jalen makes everybody on the floor better.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was really impressed, Monday night was the first time I've gotten to see him play this year. One of the things that I was really impressed about with Jalen Monday night was even at the beginning of the game when I think Barron went on a 17-4 run.
Yeah, they were lighting it up to start with. I think they hit 4 threes in the first quarter.
He has matured. He never got down. He was not pointing his fingers at his teammates.
He didn't start pressing to try to take over the game right then and come back.
He let everything come to him. And if I was Des Rowlett, I'd have probably bought him supper after the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard. They're going to be a hard beat, I think.
I do too. I think the only problem in the 5th region is Elizabethtown's size. They're going to be hard to match up with for anybody, and the way you're probably going to have to beat them is force them into turnovers and probably shoot them out of the gym.
Shoot. You've got to shoot it really well.
Yeah, so that's going to be tough. Now, everybody else, I think, in the 5th region, Caverna's right there with them because
I think Washington County will create problems for Caverna.
Yeah,
because they're the same thing. Their length.
Yeah,
but I mean, Caverna's got. Russell has improved tremendously.
Yeah.
You know, he's 6'5".
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think they're going to have a pretty good season this year.
Yeah, they're undefeated, play Hart County tonight, so that'll be an interesting matchup. It's first district game of the season for them. So, you know, I'm with you. They should have been in the top 10 in the 5th region to start with, just based on the fact that Jalen Crane was coming back. And maybe people underestimated the maturity of what he's gained in the year since last year.
Right.
And I imagine there are people right now who do the voting in the 5th region and looking at it and saying, we got that one wrong.
We missed that one. Caverna girls are 2-2.
Yeah. Man, I think if they play against a team that does not pressure them, they do okay. But they're just kind of weak on the ball handling.
And they're so young.
They are so young. I mean, the 2 games they lost, John Harden pressed them. Barron plays tough defense the whole game, even when they're not pressing you, which they didn't press them the whole game. People might look at those scores and say, well, they shouldn't do that to them. But I was thinking about this during the Barron-Caverna girls game. If I'm on the losing end of that and a team decides to run a stall just so they can run the clock out, that would make me madder than just getting beat.
It really is disrespectful.
Yeah.
And, you know, the same thing in football. Hey, if these kids are coming to practice, they practice hard every day with knowing they're more than likely not going to get to play. When there's an opportunity for them to get to play, you cannot tell them not to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Can't tell them,
Yeah, just go play the game.
I've been on the losing end a bunch,
Yeah,
whole lot.
You've told us about a game with Russellville that was not great.
But guess what? It comes with it.
Yeah.
It comes with it. And I think Coach Barber will do a good job at Caverna. But he walked into a situation where they had a couple of girls that's been playing that didn't play.
Yeah.
That would really help them because they were ball handlers.
Yeah.
I know he's very dedicated to the girls. He's very dedicated to the program. It's going to be a long season for him.
Yeah.
And I'm really not looking forward to tonight.
Yeah.
But I think Hart beat Russellville 84-28, and I think Russellville is better than we are.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see.
There are always growing pains in sports. That's what you take from it. All right, you ready to get out of here?
Yes.
I think I'm going to get something to eat.
Okay.
All right, this is James Brown. We've been here on Tell Me About It. I'm with Trevent Hayes, kysports.tv. I'm with 104thescore.com. You can catch this show every Thursday at 6 p.m. on Glasgow EPB Channel 6 local channel, Glasgow EPB YouTube channel, and on 104thescore.com and kysports.tv.
I'm with kysports.tv, just in case they didn't know. Well, you wear so many hats.
All right, we'll see you again next week.